Welcome back to day 5 of Performance Impact Week. I said it yesterday, time really flies when we're having fun, and we're already in our final session. Thank you all so much for this entire week, and what a week it's been. I really want to take the time to say thank you for all the messages, emails, note that I've been receiving, all the encouraging words, all your really warm messages that you've sent. This has made me really, really happy. I'm so glad that I've gotten the chance to do this, and together with the Kirkpatrick partners, Travado, and the Institute for Transfer Effectiveness, this has been so much fun. So thank you for really giving us all the love. It has really meant the world. For you who have not seen me before, my name is Michel Vester. I am the CEO and co-founder of Noli, and I've had the privilege of moderating the Performance Impact Week. Before I introduce the panel of today, I just want to run the thread that we've had throughout this week. We started this Monday by talking about how we position L&D towards the business. Then on the Tuesday, we moved over to how we're partnering with the business. How do we actually collaborate with them to create impact? On the Wednesday, we then moved over to how we're designing our initiatives to create that impact, that performance that we want. And then on the Thursday, we went over to how are we actually measuring and showing all of this impact that we're now creating. And today, we'll then ask ourselves, so what happens to all of this when AI enters the room? And today's session will be somewhat different from before. Previously, we've had 2 sessions or 2 blocks. The first one with an expert, and then the second one with a practitioner. Today, we'll have a panel discussion with 4 experts regarding AI and learning, and I'm really happy that I'll shortly be introducing the 4 experts that we have on. Just like before, please share all your questions, all your reflections in the chat. You'll find it in the bottom right corner of the stream, and I'll make sure to pick them up in the last 30 minutes. So the panel discussion will be for 60 minutes, and then we have the last 30 minutes for Q&A, questions, and reflections from you guys. With that said, I think it's time to introduce our panel of the day. First off, we have Josh Cavalier. Josh is the founder and CEO of JoshCavalier.ai. He's more than 30 years experience in learning technology. He's the author of Applying AI in Learning and Development. He's hosting a live show that is called Brain Power. His superpower is making AI practical for L&D professionals. And it's just no jargon. It's just things that are actually working. With us, we also have Margaret Spence. Margaret is the founder of the Inclusion Learning Lab and AI Governance for HR. She's also the author of the upcoming book, When AI Breaks the Law. She brings over 40 years experience regarding talent and learning expertise. And right now, she's really all about making AI fair, explainable, and human. With us, we also have Rahim Shamji. Rahim is the founder and CEO of ADR ODR International. It's the first company to bridge the traditional face-to-face dispute resolution with the digital world. He's a practicing barrister, Harvard-trained negotiator, and he spent more than 2 decades thinking about how technology shapes human conflict and resolution. And last, but definitely not least, my friend Peter Kurzwelly. Peter is the head of AI at the Swedish Broadcasting Network. He works at the intersection of artificial intelligence, leadership, and organizational transformation. He's helping execute teams and move AI from something that is experimental into making real impact. We have 4 super experts with us today. I want to say big welcome to the stage. How are all of you today? I'm going to start with you, Peter. How are you?
Well, I have the Friday feeling here, so I will have I'm finishing one work week and then going into the weekend where I get to do my own work week with AI. So I'm like looking forward to that.
Cool. I appreciate hearing that. Margaret, are you good today?
I am excellent today. I'm coming off of a travel week, but I'm good. It's Friday. Everything's wonderful.
Perfect. Rahim?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm calling in from London, and the weather is great. It's sunny, unbelievably, in London, and and looking forward to the weekend. And spring is in the air. It's Friday. Why not?
Nice. I was just about to say, isn't it always sunny in London?
For those of
Josh.
you who haven't been, that's
Yeah.
it's the image we keep. Yeah.
And Josh, you're on the other side of the pond.
Yeah, I'm coming off of a travel week too. Last week I was in China and doing some work over there, and I'm about ready to wrap up my certificate program today. And I got about 25 professionals in there, so we're going to finish strong this week.
Cool. Love that. I'd like to kick us off by hopefully a short and simple question. I'll throw it out to all of you and let you answer it one by one. In one sentence, what's the most misunderstood thing about AI in L&D right now, would you say? Margaret, do you want to take the
Sure, why
the
not?
lead?
I think it's the biggest issue is it's one and done. We can have one tool, one experience, and that will cover every gap that we have.
Love it. Peter?
The biggest misconception right now is that we're focusing too much on the tools and too little on the actual behavioral change that the new tools are bringing into our organizations. And that is the reason why we need to start talking about machine capabilities rather than naming tools.
I love that, and that works so well. What we're talking about this week. Rahim?
I'm muted. I think the inconsistency that we have around understanding the power and the impact of what AI does, and that follows fear. There's a genuine fear in organizations of, what do I do with this, and will it, if I do too much with it, will it replace what we've been doing before? And this leads to change, right? Which is the big fear in all human beings, is just basic change, and this is a monumental change coming our way.
Yeah. Josh?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is at the leadership level, too many leaders just bolting on AI as a tool that IT is going to implement, as opposed to looking at data and AI as a strategy for the whole organization.
So we have during this week talked a lot about going from learning to performance. I think this is a shift that we're also seeing within organizations today. The leadership and C-level more and more saying that there's so many things that we need to change, so many things that we need to learn. So where are you, all of you, seeing that AI generally can improve performance, not just the speed of content creation? Josh, if I'm aiming that one to you first.
Yeah. Well, if we can get access to business data, then we're talking, because I think that we are in a golden age to where we truly can go ahead and support the performer in the flow of work. And we've talked about it for many, many years throughout my whole entire career. And we've had this before us, but now we have the technology. If we have the access to the correct tools, the correct forms of AI, and the correct business data, we now can meet the learner or the performer right where they're at.
Margaret, I want to bring you here in as well. We had some really interesting conversation going in here about different kind of challenges regarding actually starting to work with AI. Do you want to brief us on some of the things that we talked about before?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the number one issue that we have is tribal knowledge. As much as we want to do systems implementation and we want to plug AI in, there's a set of knowledge that's in people's head that because of fear right now, they're not going to give the institution everything that they know. That's number one. The second one is we have CISOs and IT teams that are restricting use of AI, how it can be used, when it can be used, what models, what things can be done inside of the organization. There's little to no governance guardrails that are built in, and there's no governance teams inside of organizations. And then the least of the process is most organizations really don't know what their people do. And so you're trying to buckle AI on top of that, but you have no idea what they actually do. We have job descriptions and we have results, but there's a whole cadre of things that go in between. It's not documented, it's not living anywhere, it's living in people's systems. They've made their own systems, and now we're asking AI to come in and do a system. And I think those are the top four that I see.
The challenge that we talked about before this call about learning actually maybe sometimes being accused of being the break of us doing, or the hinder of us doing more regarding AI, and that it's actually more of an IT issue. Could you expand some more on that?
So I teach AI in instructional design and AI in talent development. I do that for ATD. And one of the things that comes to every cohort that I facilitate is the same thing. We're not allowed to do this. We can't upload things into AI. It's all proprietary. We have guardrails around what we can do with whatever resource that's been given in terms of an AI resource. And so the list of you cannot do is greater than the list of what you can do. And so there's limited learning in between there, and there's limited resources. So what I find is that people are resorting to using AI in different ways or learning it in different ways. And we blame talent development, we blame instructional design for not delivering results, when the reality is the guardrails around them prevent the process. They've been given Copilot. Copilot seems to be the holy grail. And you've given Copilot, it has limited abilities. You're basically, handcuffing talent development, but you're also dropping AI on people's desk as if it's a utility. Here, we've turned the switch on. Here it is. There's no real things around it. Some of the things that I'll say to them is, have you even trained people on what they can do individually by job or by task or by their routines that would make their life easier? No, we just turn the switch on. You have AI on your desk, it's solved. And so those are the constraints to adaptation. Those are the drivers of fear. That is a driver of people's behavior. It's a driver of, will we have everybody up to speed? No, we won't, because we haven't really rolled this out in a systematic way.
Peter, I see you nodding along to a lot of that. Do you want to expand your thinking to us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we talked a little bit about that before this call, but when we're trying to adopt such a big change as with a new technological shift with AI, what's happening, my experience, that's the thing that's happening, is that it's almost like you're going into your organization, your business, with the magnifying glass. What we're trying to achieve is a big shift. And when we're trying to achieve a big shift, that will highlight all of the things that are wrong already in our organization. So if we don't have the information classification, if we don't have the governance structure, if we don't have the procurement processes, if we don't have the training there, if we don't have competencies plans moving into the future, if we don't have an idea about what our future org will look like, then all of this will be magnified in this change. So when we're talking about this big shift, yes, AI is a technology, but that's why we're talking about, or that's why I want to talk about machine capabilities, because what we're trying to do is to basically outsource activities to machines instead of having humans do them. And AI is not coming for jobs, it's not coming for roles, it's coming for activities. And some roles are more exposed to those activities that AI is really good at right now. And the thing with this technological development right now is that it's moving very, very fast. So the exposure in some roles are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I always say that this is the machine capabilities we're getting here is an information and knowledge technology on steroids. So what you need to do is to understand, where do we have the exposure? What roles are exposed to these activities that now can be automated or outsourced to machines? And how do we make sure to upskill or transfer those roles and those individuals in those roles to new roles, new activities? And I think this is what we haven't been planning for in a large extent. And then when we're trying to implement these tools, we also see that we don't have the procurement processes, we don't have the governance there. So there's these barriers all the way down to the IT department, the CISOs, the L&D team, the operations team, and especially as both Margaret and Josh said, when it comes to knowledge work, we haven't been mapping that out. That is why, for example, in a manufacturing industry, this is much easier, way easier, because they are really, really good at operational excellence. They have all of their processing maps already. So you're basically seeing like, okay, this is an activity we can outsource to a machine. This is an activity we can outsource to a machine. But in knowledge work, we don't have that, because knowledge work is something magical that just happens. There's some sort of job that is supposed to be done. Then we have a team that's supposed to do that. And when you ask the team what's really happening here, everyone's like, yeah, no, but I give this information to Josh, and then Josh gives that information to Margaret, and then Margaret just does her thing, and then it goes back the other way. But what we need to do now is to steal or borrow terminology and processes and frameworks from industry to do the same type of mapping they've been doing for the last 30, 40, 50 years in knowledge work. So I'm looking forward to looking at this from maybe a jobs to be done perspective. I'm looking forward to process maps. I'm looking forward to seeing more activity maps on what's actually going on in teams, and also prioritization of what activities that we should outsource to machines going forward.
Yeah. Josh, did you say L&D is ready for that? Are we starting to actually map out what we're doing? No?
Nope, not at all. I'm a riff off Peter because he just touched upon something that's really it's going to be an issue. And what it is when we look at activities within each activity, or if you take it down to the task level, there's a level of difficulty, and there's also critical impact of failure. If that task is not done properly, what is the blast radius of it not being completed? And, in the marketplace, there's so much noise about it's either going to be a human or AI. And there's really a gradient. I mean, and getting to what Margaret was saying, we have various levels of AI where we can access. Now, what is the ultimate? The ultimate is when I have an expert in their domain and they have the best version of AI, then it really shows up. But we need to mitigate risk. And it's going to be a long process to go in and isolate all these various tasks, determine what is the true relationship of a human working with a machine, because honestly, there are some things that a human is always going to do within a role. And, I believe that many organizations that are cutting headcount at scale and they're losing their expertise, they're going to feel the pain down the line when they really should have had those experts in there that can go in and make those assessments in regards to that relationship of a human working with a machine.
That's so true. I think there's two things that we have to look at. There's knowledge intelligence and there's workforce intelligence. Okay, and there are two tracks. The knowledge intelligence is what people know, what they've done, how they've done it, the things that they've done. I come to HR from risk management. I was a risk manager before I came to HR. And in risk management, as Peter said, we look at risk in systems. What are the steps that the employee or the organization is taking to mitigate risk? And so it's always written out in process, step by step. And then you can create interventions in between where you take those interventions and you could say, okay, an employee might get injured at this spot, or a truck might have an accident here, or this might occur here, or maybe a delivery will get, they'll hit the building when they're trying to make a delivery. So we can model out risk and have risk modeling. Inside of talent development and inside of HR, there's been limited risk modeling. So for example, the biggest risk right now with AI that no one talks about, I was in Brazil last year and I'm going back to Brazil in a couple of weeks to talk about this, is the impact on women and the roles that women occupy with that AI disruption. 72% of the roles that are AI disruptable are occupied by women, who are also the primary earners in their households. That is not being talked about. That's a part of governance. And we're not talking about, again, knowledge intelligence, which is what do they actually have in their head? We'd rather cut headcount, as Josh said, let people go out the door And then we realized, wait a minute, we don't know what happened here. I was speaking at a conference earlier this week where they're going to lose 400,000 people in the industry every month for the next 5 years because it's an aging industry and they have no plans to fix it. And they think AI is going to solve the problem, but they have a knowledge problem. And then you have workforce intelligence. How do we overlay AI and then do what Peter was talking about, which is lean flow, which is from manufacturing. We have lean flow. We can take the information from this person to this person. We actually know what's going from A to B. We actually know the output and how AI can enhance that output. HR is not prepared for that. Talent has no clue on how to do that. So I'm not sure where we're going to end up with this.
That's some really positive outlooks here in the start. It feels good. Rahim, I know you're
Michelle, I mean, there are people doing it. There are people figuring it out. I mean, we haven't mentioned those companies yet, but there are companies that are figuring it out.
Yeah,
that was exactly where I wanted to move. Rahim, I know you're doing a lot of cool things from all around the world. Are you actually seeing someone doing these things? And where are you seeing it? What are they doing?
I am seeing it, and I'm excited by the opportunities, but also when I hear, Margaret, Josh, and Peter talk about the challenges, there seems to be a dichotomy between cultures within organizations or countries where innovation is a can do, or I'm going to block it because I don't understand it. So I come from a conflict perspective, right? One of my specialties is looking at organizations which are suffering and having a lot of conflict. And when I look at their root causes, it's not about behavior in the workplace or about other challenges. It's really coming down to people's expectations of others now, from a skill development, from a learning development perspective, has completely changed. So on the one hand, we're expecting so much more because you have AI. On the other hand, we don't like what they're producing because it doesn't have the knowledge behind it. It seems to be this artificially created output. Then there's the challenge of consistency. So you asked the question at the beginning before, which was, what's one good thing that's coming out of AI in organizations? And one of the outputs I'm seeing is consistency, where AI can give you that kind of finesse that an organization wants this field to be presented outside. But where are organizations doing this well? And I'll give you a real example where I do a lot of work is the Middle East. And I don't want to pick one of the countries, but across the Middle East, there is a very clear direction that comes from the top, or almost at government level, from the finance companies into the organizations, which is, we need to embrace this, but we need to do it really well and really properly. And they have the advantage of not having historical baggage in the organization, right? So I know Peter and you even you've been involved in organizations as startups. So if we take places that are startups, they think about things very differently to what I would call the historic organizations that carry this baggage. And that's where the difference is coming. So I think I mentioned before we went live that I'm seeing such inconsistency across regions and industry. And one last thing I'll just share with you from where things have gone well. I do a lot of work with the legal firms and law firms around the world. The law firms saw this coming probably about 5-7 years ago, that once AI becomes mainstream, that will be a big challenge. So they've tried, not successfully, all of them, but they've tried to think about AI law products that still require human beings, which is what Josh was talking about, that knowledge, that understanding, that interaction. But we need to say, it's not just a general open to access AI platforms that we all keep talking about, Perplexity and ChatGPT and other ones that are out there, right? There is things happening specifically because of data protection, because of client confidentiality, etc. So to what Peter was saying, that sector has looked at the skills and knowledge and capacity of a human being and say, what can we outsource to machines? what can we keep? But in general organizations with large L&D departments from across the sector, where I deal with it from a conflict perspective, I'm not seeing that being done either. So I agree with my fellow panelists a lot, but I also think there's a cultural shift in geography as well. The Far East, we work in Singapore a lot, incredible. I know Josh was in China. I mean, there is an openness to looking at things in a way that would be where I'm living right now in the UK, in other parts of Europe, and the fear is incredible. We just don't want to go there just yet. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that. I mean, it's incredible.
I want to circle back to you, Josh. Here, you mentioned briefly that there's definitely organizations, regions that are doing it more well. So
Yeah.
double clicking on what Rahim just said.
Yeah.
Who are doing it better? What do you see?
When AI showed up, there were just some companies who just looked at it as a Monday. Like really, like in their DNA, in the way that they've operated or have been operating, they looked at it as an opportunity. And so you look at Moderna, where the merger of IT and HR and what the impact of that's going to be from scaling enablement, right? Or you look at JP Morgan. JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon, what he's doing over there as far as the spend on the technology, they spend 8 billion just on tech, 1.3 billion on AI and data. They spend the same amount of money on enablement, right? Or you look at a traditional company like even John Deere, and John Deere is going to go ahead and they have data coming back and forth from tractors. That's innovation. So how do you get there? The way that you get there is that you take your people from literacy to AI fluency to innovation. And there's only a few organizations that truly get it and they understand the spend and the time that's required to move all of their people forward, to get all their systems aligned, to go ahead and think about the overall strategy of the products and services that are being offered and have alignment across the whole entire organization. And for those businesses that currently have that, they're sitting very well. For other organizations that are really struggling, they're going to have problems because venture capital and other, there's other money at play that's going to go ahead and analyze an industry and go, this is ripe for the picking. We're going to come in there, we're going to reconstitute the way that this is done, and we're going to make it AI centric and data centric, as opposed to having all these systems and platforms and lack of enablement that drag down a whole organization, because right now it's all about velocity.
So what's the difference? Is it individuals within these organizations that are more, I don't know, innovative, or
they can take risks?
Why?
They can actually go ahead and they feel compelled to put together strike teams, or even like we talk about hackathons, right? Like it's a culture of innovation, which means there is the acceptance of failure, and to actually go ahead and move forward and not feel like you are under so much pressure, you got to get it right every single time. And yes, there are things that need to be done exactly right, but there's also time to actually take a step back and rethink the whole entire work that's being done, and how can we leverage this technology to reconstitute or redefine work itself.
Peter, I know this is something that we've been talking and discussing a lot about, so I want to take you on here.
Yeah, but I think that there's, to chime in on what Josh is saying here, there's a couple of things that we've been saying. That is, you also have to be humble and say that this is really hard in an organizational context, because you have to do a lot of things at once. Partially, we've been talking about cross-functional teams for a long time. That the importance is here that we don't focus on the technology, we focus on the job, we focus on the innovative thing that we want to achieve. The challenge is that as soon as it's about technology, it's often driven by an IT, a dev department, and we don't really focus on the domain knowledge, the actual problem. So it's really about taking a step back and saying, what are we trying to achieve here, and who needs to be involved for us to achieve that? And that might seem so easy. We've been talking about it in design thinking and service design for such a long time, but once it comes down to a new technology, it's often driven by the people that understand the technology rather than the ones understanding the business challenge. So you have to do two things at once. You have to bring in both a top-down approach. Executive leadership needs to say, this is really important. We're putting AI as a strategic pillar. We understand that if we start to invest in a new technology and transformation, it will bring this J-curve effect to us. In the beginning, we will lose productivity because it will take time for us to understand where we will gain productivity. So the teams we invest in will be more expensive in the beginning before they identify and can scale the solutions that they're solving. But then again, we also need to have this bottom-up approach, because the business challenges, the problems, the places where AI needs to be implemented needs to come from these activities and the existing processes. But we need to redesign those processes so that we don't increase the complexity of those. So if, for example, if AI is driven by your head of IT or the IT department or the dev department today, you need to get the dev team and the IT team sitting together with, for example, your COO, Chief Operating Officer, to highlight where do we have increasing costs, where do we see that we're using a lot of information, and also your HR and L&D reps, because they need to understand what team members, what roles are involved in those processes, and what do we need to change them. Because you have this, to drive change, you need to involve people, and you also need to understand what's the barriers to that change so that we address that. Because in the end, as we've been saying in design thinking and service design for years, it's all about the end user. Sometimes when it comes to AI, we can skip the end user because we will automate that step. But then we need to do learning and development impact on them so that they can move within the organization, because we don't want to lose their domain knowledge. So it's like focusing on the business problems, focusing on what you can achieve in certain domains, but not driven by the technology, driven by the business needs. And this is still early days in AI, and this seems to be very hard still.
Yeah. I see two scenarios here. One being, I'm at an organization like Moderna, like JP, like you mentioned, Josh. The C-levels, they are really addressing this. They are really achieving to do great things. The other scenario is, my feeling is that organization is not driving it. The C-levels are not taking the steps that we need to take right now. Imagine myself being in a learning function in both of these scenarios. What do I do? What are your recommendations for each scenario? Margaret, would you like to start with? You can choose which one you want.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think L&D, anyone in talent development, first need to recognize that their personal growth is the first thing that they have to do. Right? Your personal growth, your personal development is not dependent on what the institution you work for is doing. That's the first thing. We cannot be effective business partners if we're waiting for the organization to develop us. That's, I think, the fundamental start. We have to recognize that we're thinking in systems. We're doing more system thinking than production. We're not order takers. We're really thinking about the system that we're operating in. And then I think the next thing is we have to become more consultative with the organization versus being directive or directed by the organization, so that we are ahead of the curve. You just, in this environment and in this AI era, which is a word I kind of hate the word, but it's overused, right? In this landscape, we have to become more consultative, more consultative with the organization. Here's what we see. Here's what we recommend. Here's where you are. I'm advocating. I'm using my voice. I think that the talent development landscape has been marginalized to HR telling us what to do, departments telling us what to do, this one's saying this is what we should do. Now it needs to be outward bound. We've looked at the organization. This is what we see. And L&D leaders can't be process nitpickers. Like we're going around picking out little tiny things. We have to be big thinkers. And in big thinking, we can advocate and we can have a voice at the table. And without that, we're going to become the reverse order takers, but we're also going to be eliminated because it's going to become headcount versus contribution.
Yeah, dead fish in the water. I think coming back to what you said, Peter, but what I hear, like what we've been talking about throughout this week, the importance of positioning L&D with the business, partnering with it, working closely together in collaboration. All of these activities will only become even more important because AI will amplify it all. If we're not doing things correctly, it will amplify the negative outcomes, and if we're doing it correctly, it will also amplify the positive outcomes. Josh, I want to bring you on here.
Yeah. Margaret has it spot on. I mean, we got to drive upstream. We got to be proactive as opposed to reactive. What does that take, though? There's a two-way street here in regards to what we have access to in regards to business data and what is truly, is it a performance issue? Is environmental? What's happening? And once we have access there, then things change dramatically. Because not only can we go ahead and orchestrate performance and learning experiences at scale and hyper-personalize them, but then we can analyze those initiatives, what has been the lift, and immediately send that signal back up into the business. And that flywheel gives us predictability. And that's where we need to sit. Now we're an asset. We are not a cost center anymore. We're actually driving productivity. We're driving performance, and everything can be measured. How about that? We're going to go level 4, maybe even level 5, all the way up. And that's where we need to be. We need to be sitting right there with the business. But unfortunately, traditional learning and even talent teams don't have the acumen. Like, they don't have those skills to work at that level with the business. So we have a lot of work to do. As far as all of the vocabulary, all of the ways of working with the business so that we're truly a partner. So, there are many challenges along the way, but I see some organizations getting it and they're driving themselves up into the business and, actually working with those business partners, training them on our language and, what we can possibly do. And I do see brighter days ahead.
Nice. We're heading in a positive direction with this conversation. That makes me happy. Rahim, I want to aim a question that I think a lot of people in our audience are thinking about right now, because throughout the week we've heard a lot of people talking about L&D budgets and L&D functions being cut a lot. At the same time, they're being asked to do even more jobs. These things that we're talking about right now, scaling initiatives that they've never done before. So if I'm currently in that role, my team has been cut, I'm getting even more, things on my table that I need to take care of. What do I do? Like, where do I start? I think is the question that I'm trying to get at.
It's a great question. And look, I think there are many ways to think about where you start. But the first way to start is to look at your team's needs and what's the output required within the organization, right? So it would be wonderful, like Josh said earlier, that if the L&D teams were actually seen as a business partner rather than just someone enabling function of business, right? And I see this a lot. And I worked with I won't mention, but a very large tobacco company a year and a half ago. And there was this whole struggle with, are we at the table, or are we just behind the table and we sort of just whisper and try to influence? So getting to the table means that you need to bring forward ideas and thoughts that allow everyone to realize that you have in the L&D team opportunities and pathways that will allow these teams to grow in the AI world. Now, there is a fear that I have, and I wanted to share this as an idea, and I'd love everyone else's thoughts as well at some point. It doesn't have to be now. But sometimes within organizations, whether it's tech teams, the development teams, or the L&D teams, we get so hung up on thinking about skills in AI, literacy in AI, that we forget the human skills that still need to be focused on in the organization for it to function as well as it needs to. And so I tell everyone that will listen to me, have a holistic understanding of your needs rather than being completely overshadowed or umbrellaed by this world of AI. Everything suddenly has to become an AI-driven opportunity, an AI learning opportunity, an AI development opportunity. I think we get lost in it. And I have a very dear friend whose first name is also Rahim, who's written a book which is coming out in July. And I want to plug the thought of the book because the idea is great. And he says that in this world of AI, we also need these super skills. And these super skills are human skills that are critical to using and understanding the world of the AI in a responsible way. And this is what is often missing, right? So I go into organizations that have conflict, and everyone's talking about we need to go down this road for AI or this road for AI. We need these skills in AI. And then I listen and I say, well, have you got the people to do these things? And they look at me going, no. Because you haven't invested in human skills before you need to get to the AI skills. And remember, Michael, Michelle, sorry, these organizations, we've got the big ones that we've been talking about, the really, really mega big organizations. Vast majority are not that big. 80% of organizations are what we would call SME around the world, right? Small and medium enterprises. And so the holy grail is not only just going into the AI world, but also investing in your human talent, which will then help you have the understanding. Do they have the skills to get through the fears, the conflicts, the challenges that AI brings in your organization? But I would start locally to your question. Really figure out output, work backwards, a bit like what we've been talking about, which is, make those lists, bring experts in to help you. Amongst us on the team, there are many other good people around the world who will look at organizations and help them think this through. Because if that skill is not in your team, go get it. And I think the first fear, I work with some of these big thought leaders, the first fear is accepting I don't have all the right answers in my team. I need to go and get talent to help me to do this. Like Margaret said earlier, we were talking about the fact that everyone thinks they're an AI literate person because they have access to a Copilot or an equivalent program because it's been installed on their computer. Wrong. Right? You need to go and think about, I need to go and get that. And then, but yeah, start locally, start thinking about product and output and work backwards.
Peter, I mean, you are doing a lot of these things right now and probably feeling a lot of these pains that we are mentioning and talking about at the moment. Could you just share some of the learnings that you've had, some of the challenges that have come during this journey, and also some successes that you had?
Yes, of course. I think the thing that we need to do right now is to prioritize our resources on the things that we see have an impact. As an example, maybe focusing, if I'm an L&D professional today, focus on specific teams that have an high level of exposure to what's going on. We know now that people are doing a lot, like seeing success in customer service. We know now that you have information dense areas of your organization where you're trying to implement AI, and we also know that in those areas AI is very successful. So then you need to start there. You need to start doing the mapping of processes. You need to start building up literacy. You need to talk to your team that you will see a significant change in the coming years from what you were maybe doing in the last year, what you will be doing in next year. And then we need to transfer people there. So activities that we are running is, for example, we're running AI for leaders, AI for executives, and AI for certain roles. we need to meet the people where they're at right now. We need to meet them at their maturity level. We need to meet them in their role, because it needs to be relevant for them. So I'm working a lot with everyone that's working with change knows this. We're working with an ADKAR framework, where we're trying to see where they are in terms of their maturity journey. So then we're developing specific concepts, specific learnings where we can activate them, make them understand, but also give them the tools so that they can start building things themselves, so that they're a part of this automation. As we said earlier, this is not binary. It's not either or. It's way more of a process where we need to look at, for example, autonomous driving. Autonomous driving is on a scale from 0 to 5, different levels for different tasks. We know that we have certain conditions that we need to meet for us to go like full autonomous. Very few processes in our organizations can be fully autonomous right now. We still need human judgment. We still need to be human in the loop. So what we're trying to do is to look at the maturity of that role and maturity of that task, and really try to identify how much of this do we think that we can automate, and what does that mean for the ones in the role today. And then we involve them. We design workshops around them. They're a part of like mapping up their processes, and then seeing, okay, this is an opportunity for AI, this is an AI moment, this is a tool that we need to have, so that we're not always focusing on the tool, but we're focusing on the behavioral change. And I think that this is really what we've learned over the last 2 years. It's about the technology, but most of it is change management. And because it's change management, we need to involve the organization. It's not that hard. Like, this is maybe like you're talking about like science fiction over here. We're seeing computers like AI models take over computers and doing work. And that's really hard. The research is really hard. But some of these changes, it's like, this is change management, but we need to do it really, really fast. And then engagement and involvement is the one thing. So design for the change you want to achieve. And then, yes, it's good to educate your entire organization, maybe have like an AI for all type baseline literacy competence development, but then once again, make it relevant for the people that you're trying to change. And then you need to be way more specific and prioritize the areas where will see the most of the change in the coming 12 months.
Make sure to prioritize, make sure to focus maybe on the more low-hanging fruit. Margaret, I think I really love what you said on what they should do. What keeps on popping up in my head is then, right, now I know what I should do. There's so many things I'm already doing. It's not like I'm feeling I have a lot of space on my plate right now where I can add new things to do. So my question for all of you is, so what should I stop doing? If I need to prioritize, what am I not doing anymore so that I can do all of these great things that you're mentioning? Josh, I'm looking at you firstly.
Yeah. And just to touch upon what Margaret was saying about how people need to advocate for themselves as a professional. We are facing a huge mental health crisis with this. And I went ahead and I put in the chat a link out to a study at Stanford that looked at the relationship of humans working with machines. And the bottom line, essentially any mundane task, we're all over it all day long. I don't want to do that type of work. And we're going to go ahead and give it to AI. But the problem is that when you have a professional that has been an expert in their craft for multiple decades, and they look in what AI can do, and there are moments where they have to face the reality that that machine can do the work as good or better than them in something they love to do. And that, from an HR standpoint, is going to be a massive issue as we move forward. And we need to give individuals the environment and the tools that they need to face that reality. And it's not like everybody has a growth mindset, right? And so, but we want to retain that expertise. And so, as we look at the reality of this technology doubling in capability now it seems like it's every week, but every 4 months, what does that mean for the people in our organizations? What does that mean for us from a societal standpoint? And so we need to face that reality and figure out, how do we best support our people so that they can continue to have a path forward with the organization and also as a professional.
Josh, I know you have to run soon
Yes.
and defend more humans against machines.
That's right, exactly.
Thank you so much for being here. This has been highly appreciated and so generous of you of sharing all your expertise around this topic. One final thing before we leave it, we have a bunch of people listening right now. How can people be helpful to you?
Yeah, I mean, if they want to connect with me, just go ahead and connect me up on LinkedIn, DM me, and then JoshCavalier.ai is the best way to reach me. I really appreciate it, Michelle, for all of the conversation. To my peers, thank you so much for the opportunity to have a conversation.
Thank you for joining in. Thank you so much, Josh.
Right.
Margaret, I want to pick up on that same thing because I think there were so many great things that you said regarding what we should do more of, but then what do we remove? Because I think a lot of people are feeling that anxiety, like I got to remove something. So what do I remove?
Yeah. So I agree with Josh's premise on, taking people through change, right? But I think organizations need to make honest lists. Start doing, stop doing, continue doing, right? It goes back to this fundamental, I think we're trying to build new systems, but they're base systems like AdCar that has existed in talent development for years, right? All of the change management principles that we've had in place, we need to tap into them. Go back and read those things that we probably have forgotten. And then we need to start saying, well, this is what we need to start today. This is not going to be fixed overnight. There are small steps and incremental steps that we have to take. But the bottom line starts with communication. How we communicate with employees is the most fundamental thing that we can do. I did a program recently on how do we elicit fear around AI. It's the language that we use inside of the organization that pulls people to fear, that has them now become tribal, that has them not want to participate in what we are asking them to do. And so they can't get to stop, start, continue because we're not communicating effectively. So the first thing is transparency, effective communication, and then asking people on your desk, what would you like to stop doing? Everyone has a list of things that they absolutely hate doing. This is not a, what can we AI is a question, right? It's the routine, repetitive things. But here's what I told my class last week. When I started using AI, I've been an early adopter. So I used to be a demo tester for a lot of the current big box AIs. I volunteered to be a beta tester for startups years ago. So I was like tinkering with AI long before ChatGPT showed up on everyone's desk. And so when Claude showed up and I said, okay, I'm going to use Claude, the first thing I had to mentally do was get myself ready to just say, I don't have to be in control. I don't have to make the PowerPoint. I don't have to write the script. I don't have to. So the first thing that people have to do is just say, I'm okay with AI doing some things. Now you have a minimal adoption. Then you get to, okay, here's the mundane that I don't want to do anymore. I'm okay with AI doing that for me. And the other thing that I say to my students is, think of AI as the assistant you have no money to afford, you can't afford to hire, right? This admin assistant that your organization is going to give to you. What can I give to my admin that would make my day better every day? So rather than us going into these really large, oh my gosh, we got to do all this big stuff, just go here, small, and just take tiny steps so that people feel more comfortable doing, more comfortable letting go, which is critical, more comfortable saying, my purpose will not change, and this is a big one. My purpose will not change because AI has joined my desk. I still have a purpose in the organization. I still have a need to be here. My skill set and knowledge bank that I've gained all these years is still a value to the organization. And then you can say, okay, let's move more exponentially. Let's move faster. But we've got to get really down to this tiny place.
I love that. I think you're spot on what we need to do. Rahim, I want to see if I'm able to express the thing that is going through my head right now. We talked before about the pace that things are moving in right now, and then we're encouraging individuals within learning to really take baby steps in starting to do small things differently, continuously learning and testing these things out. I think that there's a lot of people out there that are feeling I'm trying to take these baby steps, but the pace of change is constantly outrunning me. I've tried taking these baby steps, and all of a sudden a new thing comes along, and it's a new race car, and it's even faster, and I need to get on that one, trying to take baby steps, but I'm constantly being outrun. What kind of advice would you give to people feeling those kind of emotions at the moment?
I mean, there isn't a conversation, Michelle, is there? Anyone's having anywhere where we're not talking family, friends, colleagues, that someone's not talking about what you just did on AI, a new AI tool, a new feature. Booking your flights is now better on AI than it was on a website. Like there are things that are happening.
Yeah.
And I say to people that fear from a human perspective is very, very real and good. It's a good thing to have. We should be a little bit sensitive. We should be a little bit circumspect that what is this thing and is it the right thing for me to do? Is it a phase? Is it going to pass? Are we really going to go down this road? But at the same time, I'm saying to people, while it's here in the form it's in now, and we're going through this huge change, embrace it in a way that allows you to manage it on a daily basis. And I say the word daily and not weekly, because this is not something that you can reserve for Sunday morning or a Saturday afternoon thing. This is something that needs to incorporate into your daily routine. And it's small changes that one needs to make to understand this from a day-to-day perspective. Then we need to think about it from a learning and development and training perspective, personally, and then from an organizational and a family perspective. So I'm very lucky that I have a 10-year-old boy who wants to do everything on AI, right? And some of my fears, even though I'm using it a lot professionally, he comes to me and says, but Daddy, you can do it differently this way. So we've got into kind of an AI rhythm as a family, where we have an AI-based conversation with each other on things that we have learned every 2 or 3 days over dinner. That dispels myths and challenges, but also creates questions and opportunities to think about your growth. So if we take this as individual growth, then as a team growth in a company, and then as a company growth and culture. And it needs to, and these conversations from L&D and from other teams need to happen in part of the culture. And I know that we've talked a lot about this idea of, and we're going to come onto it, is governance. Who is holding the hand of the organization to think about what this means? And we have regulation and non-regulating countries. And so we have dichotomies already within that. But every individual needs to start with him or herself to say, what do I need to do to skill myself to understand it? And it's multiple things, right? One application, one platform is not enough. They work differently. They think differently. So yeah, I mean, we could draw something out for people and say, what does that need to look like? But any I hate to say it, but any course on AI is not a bad course on AI. It might not be brilliant, but if it moves you from little to little bit to more, let's do it. Let's do it, right? That's the other challenge right now. If you Google right now or go onto AI and say, what's a good AI course? You'll be listed 100 different ones. Peter talked about AI for leaders, AI for executives, right? Well, am I a leader? Am I an executive? That's another definition challenge. Where do I fit in, right? Now, you need to read a bit more below that print and who's delivering it. What are you going to get from this, right? Because there's a bandwagon, I hate to say this, where every educational institution is suddenly saying, come to us and learn AI. Are you learning prompt engineering? Are you learning about machine capacity? Are you learning about big sky thinking where AI can take you to another level? What is it you're looking to do? And this is the critical thinking and the critical way of understanding a new product, but without saying no all the time. Can't keep saying no, but we do need some critical analysis that takes place. And and when organizations get rid of so many people because they're scared about what AI is going to do, and I think Josh mentioned this earlier, you're going to lose the people that will give you that critical edge and really agitate. I love that word, agitate the answers in a way that moves you to the next level, right?
Margaret, Rahim just mentioned governance here, so I want to bring you on to that one. I know this is really your field. Could you just give us a brief introduction to the challenge that we're facing here right now?
Thanks for that, Michelle. As I said prior, my experience is in risk management. When I think about governance, everyone is out there running around. I'm going to go get governance certifications and I'm going to get lots of governance training. What we really need to do is take risk managers who are adept at understanding organization risk and overlaying that with people who are in HR and in talent and looking at the organization as a holistic, breathing entity, not just a policy structure. And when you think about governance, it's what could happen, what has happened, what's happened out in the ethers in the wild, right? And how does that affect our internal processes? But more than anything else, it's creating the psychological safety for people to question what the AI is doing, right? We cannot just implement and then say, this tool is here, go use it. This process is here, this is what we're doing. We have to look at it and say, okay, who will spot that something is wrong? And how do I train them to see risk through the lens of their day-to-day operation, their day-to-day work? I'll give you an example.
Please.
We all know globally about the Workday litigation, Mobley v. Workday. My new book is all about that case and several others. But at some point, people saw the AI process making a mistake. Were they comfortable enough raising that to someone and saying, this is what happened? There's an issue right now with Lovable, which is one of the vibe coding apps, where Lovable launched. Someone reached out to them 49 days ago and said, you have a back-end exposure, you have a problem. They raised it, an external hacker, an external ethical hacker reached out and said, you have a problem. And Lovable said, no, we don't. We fixed that problem. And they closed it. There was not a step in place to say, wait, somebody said something. Let me not automatically close the ticket because it seems repetitive. If they raised it, who else needs to know this? That person closed the ticket. 48 days continued. The ethical hacker went to the public. Now we have a problem. The organization issued 3 different responses. No, we don't have a problem. It's a problem that's fixed. Oh, dear God, we have a problem, right? That's governance. Who internally is absolutely responsible for the AI specifically? If you have 99,000 tools in your organization, you need 99,000 individual people responsible for those individual products who are subject matter expert, who know the product, who can see the problems and raise the issue. And this is not going out and hiring 50 governance people. It's training the internal subject matter experts on what looks good, what looks wrong, and how to raise an issue. And the organization saying, just because we invested $1 billion in this, somebody could say we made a mistake and we can dial it back until we fix it. That's the fundamental of governance in its purest form. Yeah. In its purest form. Yeah. And then we have the laws. I mean, I live in the US, the Wild West. I think we will. I don't know what else we're going to call ourselves. We're the wild, soon to be 1800 West, right? We have no overall governance process in the US. Zero. We have 50 states, 1 billion little cities. We have a tiny little town in New York that made a governance law, a tiny little town in Chicago that made a governance law, a tiny little town in... So now you have people trying to manage this as an overall arch. What I've said to our client customers is take the EU AI Act, which came out of Brazil. Brazil actually was the first country to put in AI governance as a structure. Take those two rules, Singapore and other places, and create from that. Do your internal governance based on what external, and then meet whatever state laws you have in the US. Because we are not going to ever, our drive is eliminating people and getting dominance over AI versus governing it. We're not interested in governing it right now. There's no appetite for it. And I don't know that changing the top is going to change that. There is no appetite in the US for AI governance and AI guardrails.
So many things I want to pick up on here, and so many key lessons, especially when we're starting to talk about everyone becoming a builder. I think we have to add a follow-up to that sentence and a governance functions of themselves. Thank you for highlighting that, Margaret. I appreciate that a lot. Time is flying. I think we should have done this for 10 hours instead of 1. Because there's so many things that I would like to keep on discussion together with you guys. But we have to move that to another time and date. But I'll make sure to pick up on that thread because I think there's so many things that we can keep on discussing here. Thank you so much, Margaret. Thank you so much, Rahim. Thank you so much, Peter. You will stay on because I'll make sure to pick up questions from the audience in this Q&A section. Just one thing before we do this. Melanie, do I have you on the cord? I hope I do. I think I do. How are you doing today? Nice.
Yeah, actually, kind of almost at the end, but I think, the panelists just gave us another reason to organize Performance Impact Week 27.
I think they did. So London is sharing their weather with Basel. That's good.
Absolutely. I made sure Rahim gets some of that.
That's good. So one thing I would like us to do is something that we've done a couple of times before, and I know that you're really good at doing at all your trainings, making sure that individuals have packed their right bag to be able to actually do things differently from this week. So would you help me setting the stage on what we want to do here?
Yes, I mean, I know, and we'll come back to more questions, but we kind of want to really walk the talk. I mean, we can't keep talking about, really driving behavioral change all week long. And then we, as the organizers here, kind of fall into the same trap as we very often do in training, where we run out of time for the one very crucial step, and that is transfer planning. You can have all these great ideas, and hopefully everyone who joined us all week, has loads of ideas in their mind. But I don't know about you. Sometimes it feels like you have that heavy backpack on your shoulders, just loads of ideas. But boy, you first need to go and review everything to actually decide how you're going to implement it. I see Peter kind of nodding along as well. The thing is, if that's how people leave the room, or in this case now the conference, it's game over, because that's not going to happen. Let's face it, some of us spent 5 days this week at this conference, and that means there's loads of emails waiting for us and other meetings. We got to make sure we give people the time already in the space, so in this case at the conference, in your case maybe in the training, to actually review what they've learned. And then I think, Margaret, you spoke about that as well. How can we kind of drive this AI adoption? It's the baby steps to really ensure that out of all these ideas we've collected all week, what is that one small personal step that we're going to take to actually implement what we've learned? And I think for that, Michelle, you and Carl have put together something now for people to join if you want. We've put together some transfer planning for you, some resources in the stream, but also a QR code that you can scan now that takes you to the Noli platform that we've heard a lot about as well. And it prompts you with a series of reflection questions, if I'm not mistaken, Michelle, to really identify that first little baby step that you want to take. And guess what? Just a little bit of a warning. If you decide, which I really hope you do, to actually participate in it, all of us from the conference team, we're actually going to be able to kind of make sure you're going to implement that. We'll give you that accountability, that peer support, those nudges to keep following up with you on whether you've actually implemented what you wanted to do. Feel free to add anything, Michelle.
Yeah, no, I think that was perfect. So what you're gonna do as soon as you've scanned the QR code, you're get to register yourself, and then basically share. So what are your key insights? Just basically get the possibility to write that down. What are your key insights from this event? And then make sure that you get the possibility to move from insight to action. So like Melanie said, what's one small thing that you would do, should do from these insights that you have? And then make sure that becomes a small baby step. When are you going to do that? When have you set off time to do that? And help yourself schedule a calendar event or other support structures to help you really succeed with that first little thing. So make sure to scan the QR code. If you're listening into this afterwards on YouTube, you can still scan the QR code and do this afterwards. And like Melanie said, we'll make sure to follow up with you and make sure that you're getting those encouragement, that you're getting that support to actually succeed in doing these small things.
And just one thing, Michelle, since, some of you might say, oh, but, when I run my sessions, I might not have access to such a cool tool like Noli. We've also uploaded in the stream kind of an analog version of a transfer planning activity that you can borrow and steal and use in your training sessions when you don't have access to the tech.
Awesome. With that said, find time to finish your transfer plan whenever you have time. I want to utilize the time that we have right now and also bringing up questions to the panel. Maybe I should utilize you, Melanie. Do you have any question that you're thinking about right now from the discussions that we've just had?
Now you really caught me off guard. I was getting ready for my transfer planning. You know that I'm not so good in multitasking. I have a feeling that maybe Ryan and Vanessa might have your questions. I'm going to just pass this on to them.
I think that's good. Vanessa, Ryan?
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that you would leave all participants with today, what is that thing that they could take like their next step when it comes to AI and integrating it into their workflow?
Amazing. Peter, do you want to start?
Yeah, if you are an L&D professional today, I think you should use what already works. And this is so much about redesigning work. So what you need to do is to take, for example, the Agile Manifesto. This already works for software development. They have a very rapid pace of change in software development if you're a software dev. So use that. Use the same structure, but use it for all kinds of work. This has been around for a very long time. It's been there in front of our nose, but because we don't focus on restructuring, because then you may go from making L&D to like project basis to more active learning all the time. So take the 2-week sprint methodology, take the retrospective methodology, take the demo methodology, plan to have retrospects on a regular interval. That's the 12th principle in the Agile Manifesto, that the team should reflect on how to become more effective. Then we change the way we work constantly. Use the same methodology. Use 2-week sprints on any type of knowledge work. Do planning. What are we going to achieve for these 2 weeks? Do a retrospect in the end of that sprint and focus on what you've learned and what you will change in the coming sprint. Then you will be able to amplify yourself, your team, and implement a new type of AI activity every week. So that's my main go-to, and for all types of knowledge work, this already works. We know this because it works in software development. Make that a standard in all types of knowledge work.
Awesome. Rahim, same thing for you?
Oh, he's muted.
There's so many great things you're saying, Rahim.
Yeah. No, I got it. Sorry. I was just going to say, for me, the thing I want to leave people with is that AI is full of diversity, and pluralism is a good thing, right? So what works for one may not work for the other. Find your rhythm and find what gives you the best output, and that will take some time. So don't get stressed out by the first tool may not be the right tool for you.
Thank you. Margaret?
Okay. Be curious. Let go of perfectionism. Ask powerful questions. Failure is not final. And we are just taking the first steps. One of my motto is the journey of, which is a Leisu model, which the journey of 1,000,000 miles is the first step. We just have to keep walking every day. And so there is no perfection, because just as soon as we think we have something down to a science, there's a new model, there's a new process, there's a new update, there's new change. Something got happier, rosier, and the red ball is constantly bouncing. And so we don't always have to chase the red ball, but we do have to ask better questions and more introspective questions of our teams, of our organization, of ourselves. I think one of the critical questions that I ask my audience all the time is, if we do nothing, what will happen? Right? And if we're willing to hold on to the way things have always been, what will we block in terms of innovation? And if we are missing people from this table, what will happen to the organization, or what will happen to us? And so it becomes a matter of us being more inclusive, more curious, more open, less fearful, and more driven by our purpose for the future.
I'd like to double click on one of the things that you just mentioned, Margaret. And I think it's because all of us are sitting here and nodding along to it. And you were mentioning the importance of making more mistakes, basically. Not always knowing the outcome and actually testing things out. And Peter, this is something that we've, of course, talked a lot about coming from the startup environment, the importance of always making failures and learning from that. I think this is something that we are continuously saying, but all of us know how hard this is to actually do within a large organization, because it's usually not built to make mistakes. You're being incentivized to not make mistakes. So how can we help people make mistakes within large organizations?
Psychological safety. It's the only way. The ability to fail, for us to recognize that it's a next opportunity to succeed. And if we don't create the psychological framework for people to feel good, even when things don't go the way that we intended them to go, then we are going to block all of this. Every part of technology comes down to the human experience. How do we make people feel while they're learning? Do we make them feel like they're stupid? Oh, why can't you learn this? Which there's one big organization that basically said, if you can't adopt to the AI tool, we're letting you go. And then they laid off lots of thousands of people. And that sent a ripple effect through institutions, because they bucketed people on people who were able to adopt to AI and people who could not. And then the punishment for not adopting to AI was termination. And then they felt that that was a good thing to put out a press release, and their CEO came on every major, business channel and said, this is how we made the decision. That's a rippling effect. So if we don't create psychological safety for people to test and fail, they will not test again. And that's critical. I think the inclusivity around this is what is going to make this process work better.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts here, Peter, because I mean, you've been in both worlds. You've been in the startup environment. You are now in the larger organization. How are you tackling that? How are you enabling your organizations to keep on making mistakes and learn from them, as you did in an awesome way when you were running startups?
The difference is that the velocity of learnings is it's much easier in a smaller team, because you can share everything. And a startup is also based on learnings. Like, we know that we need to fail to find our way of going forward. Like, we don't have a product market fit at first, so we need to find that, and finding that is a process of making the wrong thing so that we can identify the right thing. But in a larger context, I think it's really important to design for what Margaret is saying here, psychological safety. But okay, so what is that? What do we do? And I think that learning, it's so much about moving over to active learning. That's why I'm talking about the sprint design, the retrospects, because learning needs to now be integrated in all roles, because all knowledge roles are impacted by this technology. So then when it comes to learning and development, this is the classical 3E methodology, but you need to design for education, you need to design for exposure, and you need to design for experience. So people need experiences. And if you're doing a training, you need to get hands-on with that. What do I do? What tools do I use? What is the goal with this? What's the job that needs to be done, and so on. And when we're doing that, when we're doing new things, we will do the wrong things at some point. But the most important thing is that we learn. Like, we design sprints of learning. We're challenging the way we're working, and then we learn. We have a retrospect. We have a sit down. What did we learn? What did we learn in this activity? So that we don't do the same mistake next time. And then we have compounding learning over weeks. And that's why we need to engage with the teams. We need to involve them in designing these tests so that we move ahead. And I'm willing, as a manager now and as an executive, I'm willing to invest in learnings rather than tools. Because if I invest in learning over here and we learn things, the best thing I can do is to take that learning and communicate that to other departments. So it's all about designing the environment for these 3 E's so that we will do the things better in the next sprint. And that works like even better in a large enterprise, because there's so many low-hanging fruits. There's so much value to be fetched and to be extracted from easy processes. But we need to rethink L&D from projects into being more active in every single role. So it's not only about trainings anymore. It's not only about like the knowledge tool is great, but we also need to involve the real activities and get people having hands-on experience in their everyday work.
Picking up on what you mentioned before, actually building on what works. If I'm an L&D function, I hear that like I should do that. What's your recommendations to actually finding the things that work? Like, how do you go about actually, getting to know what's working in our organization?
It's already working. Like, you don't have to guess. It's like take the Agile Manifesto, take the sprint design, implement that in, focus on specific teams, prioritize the teams that have a big exposure towards this technology, drive a design test. For example, this is what we're going to do. That's why you need the IT department, the COO, the head of that department or the head of that team, and HR around the same table. Say that we're going to do tests now, run tests, learning tests, because we understand that this team needs to work differently. They need to redesign their work. So we're going to spend 1 hour doing the workshop where we look at the current process. We're then going to spend a half an hour designing a test, and then we have a sprint where we challenge the way we're working today, and we have a daily stand-up, then we do a demo, and then we do a retrospect, and then we extract the learnings, and then we move on to the next team. So we're learning a new way of working. It's not magic. This is like super easy. Just do this. It will work.
And I think you're spot on. Sometimes we're making this too hard for ourselves, and we just need to, like Melanie said, start with the small steps. And here you have a framework of actually take the next steps as well. I want to say a big thank you. I had high hopes for this conversation, but you guys blown my mind. This was amazing, and I hope all of you out there have gotten a lot of great ideas and some concrete first steps that you can take as well from this conversation. Margaret, Rahim, Peter, thank you so much for generously sharing all your expertise. With this entire audience now listening in, to each and every one of you, the same question that I posed to Josh. What's something that the audience could be helpful to you? Margaret, if I start with you, how can they be helpful to you?
I think one of the biggest challenges that I have personally is getting folks to not fear governance, right? And not fear the inclusivity part of governing AI. Governing AI is not shutting the tool down. It's understanding the guardrails that have to be put in for efficiency and effectiveness. And I think that is our biggest challenge. I launched AI governance for HR as a way of democratizing and writing. I'm a writer, and so I love writing. And so I publish articles almost every day geared towards HR and how governance can be implemented. And just initially to just have people be aware. And then now just making it really open so everyone can participate and not have fear. I think that's the biggest thing. It's just helping helping get the word out that this is not as hard as it seems, and that we can do this together, and we could do it by sharing knowledge, not by hoarding knowledge among ourselves.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Rahim?
I think the creating, I would love people to ensure that their organizations create an open culture around the opportunities of AI. And vocabulary is really important. Let's use the right language to bring it in. Because when you talk about AI, immediately it invokes this fear of, I'm losing jobs, we're going to lose people, it's going to change the way we think about things, it's not real. And I think if we can get that balance of human relationships becoming stronger and better with the use of AI, we change the way we think about things. And because from a conflict perspective, I go into organizations and the biggest fear is uncertainty. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people do not want to work with AI, or they do just what we call the tick box exercise, where, yes, we've got it, and we are looking at it, and we are analyzing it, when actually they're doing nothing. So let's create that right culture.
Amazing. Peter, how can they be helpful to you?
I would like everyone to do one thing moving forward. That is to take 5 to 10 minutes in every recurrent meeting that you have. If it's a weekly meeting with your team, if it's a monthly meeting with your management team, if it's a board meeting, dedicate 10 to 15 minutes, ask the same question every time. What did we learn about AI and the use of AI since last time, and how can we use that? Simple, but do it.
Amazing. I love the inflation of time, even and the pace of things changing. In the beginning of the sentence, it was 5-10 minutes, and at the end, it was 10 to 15.
Yes.
Inflation is it's moving so fast. Even during a sentence, it's becoming more time. I love it. Again, a huge thank you to all of you. I'd like to collect the entire Performance Impact Week team on stage and do a collective thank you and goodbye to everyone. Melanie, Vanessa, Ryan, thank you all for all the hard work that you guys put in to making this possible. This has been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of hard work, but a lot of fun. So thank you all for doing this. And I hope this was the first of many.
Definitely. Thank you all. Thank you to Carl and the Noli team. Truly the brains behind a lot of this and making this all run so smoothly. I saw a lot of comments on how amazing everything ran, and that was truly all Carl and his team. And just thank you to our speakers for giving their time to be here.
We mentioned Carl. I know he initially told me not to do that shout out, but I also do want to in with his name, Steven. There's a person by the name Steven really behind all of this, making sure like the way everyone sees us on the stream, everyone looks fine, and having taken massive amounts of time to prep with everyone. And so just, yeah, Steven, if you hear us, and I know you can actually even see us, of course, just a really big virtual thank you, Hawk, for making this so smooth for everyone.
Yeah, I second that. Stephen and Carl, thanks so much. To everyone that joined for the full week, I think we're all really happy that, you showed the same interest that I know the four of us have for this topic of performance and impact in L&D. Yeah, and a special thank you to all the speakers throughout the week and especially today also on this topic. I think it was extremely valuable, everything that was shared. I know that the audience on every day, they took a lot of practical insights that hopefully they're going to now go and implement to kind of, I guess, lead the way in terms of AI and impact when it comes to L&D. So really appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you all, guys. Thank you all for listening. For the first time this week, I'm not saying see you tomorrow, same link, same time. Hopefully, I'll be saying that in maybe a year again. But thank you all for this. This has been an amazing week. Take care and have an amazing weekend, everyone. Bye now.